Ballot item number 12, private members' notice of motion. Number 15, Mr. Natyshak.
The member for Essex.
Move that, in the opinion of this House, the following principles should be immediately applied to the province's gaming policy. Number 1, implementation of the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation's transformation of gaming strategy be suspended until after the 2014 Ontario municipal elections in order to allow municipalities wanting to be a host site for a casino to undertake a referendum on the issue of the 2014 ballot. Number 2, a panel composed of representatives nominated by the 3 recognized parties be tasked with hearing from stakeholders and drafting fair spending limits for parties taking part in the referendum on casinos. Number 3, changes to the slots at Racetrack partnership be frozen in order to enable the horse racing industry to continue to operate while the government engages the industry in a robust consultation with the goal of ensuring its survival, stability and growth. And number 4, current funds from unclaimed purses due to racetrack closures be made available to local or community racetracks. And I so move. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you. Mr. Natyshak has moved private member's notice of motion number 15. Pursuant to Standing Order 98, the member has 12 minutes for his presentation. Mr. Natyshak.
Before I begin, from the outset, I have some people I'd like to acknowledge who have helped me along the way to learn more about this industry and to advocate on behalf of it. Number 1, I'd like to thank our leader, Andrew Horvath, and my MPP caucus. It's already started. You know, Mr. Speaker, they will not only...
Stop the clock. The member for Lanark, you've been one before. This is your second one and then the last one. I opened the debate by saying I expected this and I expect to maintain order. Mr. Natyshak.
Speaker, they can choose to not show me any respect, but what they are doing is not showing the people who came here today and took the time out of their days any respect. This is an opportunity for us to have this debate, so I hope they will oblige this House. I'd like to thank our leader, Andrew Horvath, who actually this bill piggybacks on what she introduced in October. Unfortunately, it was killed due to prorogation. I'd like to thank members of the Public Service Alliance of Canada, Christopher Wilson, Sharon D'Souza, Theo Lagakos, members of the Ontario Harness Horse Association, Jim Whalen, Brian Tropey, Christine Arledge, Ken Hardy, Mark Horner, Paul Lindsay, who have met with me countless times and informed me. It's wonderful to have their support. Members of the Ontario Horse Racing Industry Association, Sue Leslie, Anna Myers, Glenn Secura. Also individuals who I've met in person, met with many times, and also virtually over the internet. Anita and Brad Fritz, thank you guys. Bob McIntosh, Dr. John McKinley, Leo Thibodeau, Dr. Mark Biederman, Bob and Veronica Lattiser, Mark Williams, Paul Branton, Mayor of Lakeshore, Tom Bain, Roy Steele, Jamie Higgs, who is at this moment awaiting the delivery of his first child. Mr. Speaker, it's really a remarkable thing. We congratulate him. Brittany Kennedy, Marilyn Held, Darren Kennedy, Ken Gijarto, Doris Middleton, Jason Mitchell, Ron Mitchell, Jane Mitchell, Ellie Mayhew, Karen Duck, who is celebrating her birthday today. Happy birthday, Karen. Ashley Keir and Kurt Hipp. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank those from the industry who have taken the time out of their lives to be here today in support of this motion. Your presence here today humbles me. Those who have worked with me on this issue over the past year will know that I speak frankly. So expect that from me again today. This is an important debate. It will allow us, elected officials of this House, to firmly express our position on not only the future of horse racing, but the future of gaming in this province. You see, as we've tried to analyze the rationale behind the decision to end the SARP program, we can come to no logical conclusion. Why destroy a partnership that was successful in creating 30,000 full-time jobs? Why end a program that delivered over $1 billion per year to government coffers? Why obliterate an agreement that was responsible for billions more in economic activity for rural Ontario? The old adage says, when nothing else makes sense, follow the money. So where is the money? Gaming is inherently a risky business. It is, in fact, the business of risk. Hedging your bets and stacking the decks always puts the odds in the House's favor. So if the House always wins, and we, the people, are the House, then why sell the farm? Well, that's where the lure of a quick payout and a sure bet has enticed the Liberal government to go all in on private casino expansion. This was and is and continues to be about big private casinos eliminating the competition and seizing that market share. This was a hostile takeover by the OLG, sanctioned by the Liberal government and orchestrated by privateers. The power and influence of the casino capitalists is palpable in our communities, and an army of high-paid lobbyists have descended on potential host communities with a singular focus: to get the deals done and to start raking in the profits. That's why, Mr. Speaker, this motion calls on the government to establish a tripartisan committee to set spending and intervenor status limits to ensure that a municipal referendum is conducted in a fair and transparent way. Mr. Speaker, it's private business. It's not their fault. Their motives are clear. It's the meaning of their existence. Now, do I think that private casinos could be more successful than publicly run casinos? Well, in fact, I do think that they would be extremely efficient at drawing in gamblers on the hopes of a big payout, only to fleece communities out of busloads of money to send it to a vault somewhere in Las Vegas. But is that where we want to go as a province? Is it good and responsible public policy? We in the NDP say no. We say it is the responsibility of the government to weigh the risks and rewards of gaming expansion and to temper that desire of a quick payout with the knowledge that the socioeconomic impacts of gambling are often result in terrible effects, one that most often municipalities have to shoulder the financial burdens of dealing with. That's why this motion calls on the government to ensure that a municipal referendum takes place prior to any casino expansion, to give the people a say as to whether they want a casino in their area or not. A right and a process that previously existed but was eliminated by the Liberal government to further pave the way for privatization. This motion today gives the other parties the clear opportunity to state their position, gives the opportunity for all the parties to state their position on private casino expansion. And I hope they do, because the other two parties subscribe quite clearly to the doctrine of privatization. I would like to know, and I hope we all hear, how this secures the future of the horse racing industry in this province. You will probably you will probably not hear that plan fully articulated by the opposition parties during this debate. You will undoubtedly hear that this all could have been averted with an election. I would ask you to think about that. As difficult and as emotional as this issue is, would a PC plan to privatize all gaming in the province of Ontario be any better than a Liberal plan to privatize all gaming in the province of Ontario? Because from where I sit, that is precisely the reason that the horse racing is in the position that it is. They are one in the same. You see, this was never about SARP. The call for transparency was a misdirection. The terms of SARP were always available for public scrutiny. Unlike the deals that are currently being negotiated under a cloak of secrecy, SARP was wholly transparent. Could it have been refined? Could it have been more tightly regulated? I think those in the industry would fully admit that we could have done more to refine it, to add some benchmarks on service delivery. Absolutely, but as I've said many times before, the program did not have to be blown up to infuse those measures of transparency and measures of benchmarks into the program. But again, this was never about SARP. It's a clear example of how with enough money, power and influence, you can eliminate the competition. So where are we? Since last year, the Premier has resigned, the Finance Minister has parachuted into a soft landing on Bay Street, and we still have no plan. We have maybes. Maybe historic gaming machines will replace slots revenue. Maybe a sports book could enhance a product line. Maybe a V75 wager could be introduced. It's well known that the transition panel reported that the industry would not be able to survive without government intervention. And it's ironic that SARP was never a subsidy but was perpetuated as such by the minions. However, the new government will most definitely be required to inject hundreds of millions of dollars in short-term funding to achieve half the levels of activity once found in the industry. That's why my motion calls on this government to suspend the cancellation of SARP until the industry can negotiate a reasonable transition product or series of products to make up for what was lost. Speaker, I haven't spoken about the breeding side, but undoubtedly, what was once a world-class industry, revered around the world for its quality of stock, has been obliterated, frozen by the uncertainty that this government's decision to arbitrarily and without consultation change the rules of the game. Yearling sales last year were reduced by nearly 50% year over year, and we can only expect that trend to continue. This is why my motion requires the government to secure orphaned purse monies and direct them to community organizations such as the Lakeshore Horse Racing Group, who are developing a plan to operate a community-based, non-profit racetrack and schedule for the Leamington Raceway, and eventually a new track if feasible. But that money should go to the horsemen, who are committed to the preservation of the industry and not back into OLG coffers. Speaker, of course, the nature of this motion, if passed, indicates the will of the majority of the democratically elected members of this House. It will be up to the government to decide to abide by the will or to deny democracy and deny the democratic process of the people, the very fundamental pillar of our society. To ignore this directive would be to disenfranchise all Ontarians who put their faith in us. The debate is no longer about blame. Those arguments have been made and have surely played out in the court of public opinion. What this motion does is allow the government to acknowledge that their actions have had deep consequences, and that those consequences have been devastating to a group of people who did nothing to deserve it. It allows us members to acknowledge this and to attempt to remedy this issue. The original architects of this plan, Mr. Speaker, are no longer here to set policy. You have the opportunity, you on the government side, you have the opportunity to do the right thing, to save a wonderful industry. This motion gives you the space to do that, and I hope you will. I urge you.
The member for Haywood Bruce, come to order.
I urge you to do something historic. I urge you to do the right thing. Support this motion. The very fabric of rural Ontario relies on it. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.